how did you get into the relationship business? Now, we're not talking dating. I just want to make it clear to everyone else here. This is not a love show. It's not a dating show. But I have met a lot of great people. So the relationship thing is about how to use strategic relationships to accelerate your business. So how did you get into this relationship business?
Great question. So like most professionals early on, I took jobs, and, early part of my career was sales management. And you really learn firsthand that people really do buy from people they like and they trust. And I'm going to add one more, they respect. And then I got into sales management, and I quickly learned people work for people they like and they trust and they respect. And so in many ways, regardless of what any of us do, I've always believed we're all fundamentally in the relationship business. Number two, being born abroad, having lived abroad, worked abroad, you quickly see firsthand that particularly in places like the Middle East, in parts of Asia, and certainly Latin America, the rest of the world builds relationships first from which they do business. And this is a terrible example, but your audience may or may not know, Bin Laden, bin, the literal translation in Arabic means son of. So your genealogy, your family lineage, where you come from matters more than any product or service that you may sell. I came to the States, and particularly in the US, but certainly other Western countries as well, it seems that if and only if the business part works, then we'll ask the person about their family, or ask about their loved ones, or ask about, really get a chance to get to know them. And more importantly, give them a chance to get to know us. And I said, there's a disconnect, particularly when we go into places and people don't look like us, sound like us, or come from our backgrounds. So after my sales and sales management job, I got into consulting. After that, I went to graduate school and then spent several years at a private equity firm where we did 110 deals. And after that fund shut down, I went on a listening tour. And Jeff, I went to 35 leaders that I liked, I trusted, I respected. And I said, what do you believe I do exceptionally well? And I'm paraphrasing, but the consistent comment was, you network better than anybody we've ever met. If you can teach other people how to do that, you'll succeed. I sat and thought about it, and I said, networking is a lot of networking out there, and a lot of it is very pedestrian or retail oriented. And my background was enterprise. I wanted to work with enterprises. And I said, what if I helped individual leaders and their teams, because there's no relationship between logos or buildings. It's always individuals, right? Mm-hmm. What if I help them and their teams identify, build, nurture over some period of time, sustain, and ultimately capitalize on what I believe is to be the biggest asset, which is their portfolio of relationships. And I started to think about these ideas and read about these ideas. And then, of course, I started teaching these ideas. And then somebody said, well, the idea sounds great. Can you help us implement it? And that became one of the first consulting projects. And that's what I've done for the last 20 years. So from speaking, as you were kind enough to mention, to that often leads to advisory, that often leads to coaching, that often leads to executive education and board retreats. And I've taken this fairly simple, fairly straightforward concept of relationships, and I've built some really interesting breadth and depth around it to accelerate enterprise growth, to accelerate value creation, to accelerate an entrepreneur gaining traction in the market, proving their value proposition, and then really scaling that idea. And those I can all lead back to really strategic relationships.